The planet Lithera had once been beautiful. Its oceans sparkled with silver light, and its forests stretched far and wide, green and alive. Cities floated in the sky, held by forces the Litherans had mastered over centuries. Life was vibrant, orderly, and full of promise. But now Lithera was dying. The sky had turned dark with ash, red and orange flames painting the clouds. The oceans frothed with poison, rivers ran black, and the forests were no longer green but twisted, burnt husks of wood. The cities, once shining with pride, now lay broken. The streets were empty, the air thick with fear. Something had come for them, and nothing they had built could stop it. The enemy was unlike anything the Litherans had faced. Known as the Shard Legion, it was a relentless army of crystalline machines, each shard a perfect killing machine. They moved without mercy, striking without thought, spreading like a virus over the land. Entire armies of Lithera fell in minutes. Villages disappeared, forests crumbled, skies filled with the screams of those who could not escape. The Litherans tried to fight. They had their own weapons, their own magic of science and energy, but it was not enough. The Shard Legion adapted faster than they could plan, overcame every defense and tore through their strongest fortresses. Despair spread like wildfire. The leaders of Lithera gathered in their final council, in a city still standing amidst the devastation. "Our technology is failing," said High Chancellor Vela, her voice shaking though she tried to hide it. "Our soldiers are dying faster than we can replace them. Soon there will be nothing left, no life, no hope." One of her advisors, a scholar named Raoul, looked up from his data crystal, worry deep in his eyes. "We have tried everything. We have fought with honor, with courage, and with all our knowledge. But the shards, they are infinite. They learn. They destroy. We cannot survive this alone." Vela closed her eyes, a single tear escaping. "Then we must call for help. We have no other choice." The Litherans sent their signal into the endless darkness of space, a message of desperation. It was more than a request, it was a plea for salvation. "To any who can hear us," it said, carried on waves that could cross galaxies, "our world dies. If there is any life in the universe that can save us, hear this cry. Come for us, help us. We are falling, and soon nothing will remain." They called for saviors. They prayed for heroes. Far across the void, orbiting a small yellow star, a blue and green planet turned. Earth. The humans watched the signal arrive. They did not answer with hesitation nor with careful diplomacy. Humans did not wait. They acted. Captain Mara Lynn of the Earth Fleet received the transmission aboard the flagship Titan's Roar. She was young, but her eyes held the weight of years of battle. She looked at her crew, all of them ready for the unknown. "This is a call for help," she said, her voice steady. "But this is not a polite request. This is desperation. And we will answer." Her crew did not flinch. They were a mix of hardened veterans, genetic hybrids, and soldiers trained in Earth's harshest war zones. To other species, humans were violent, unpredictable, and terrifying. To each other, they were family. And they knew one truth better than anyone. When someone cries for help, humans go, even if the path is death itself. The ships of Earth left their solar system, engines roaring and cutting through the darkness. Mara stood at the bridge, hands gripping the railing, staring at the stars stretching endlessly ahead. "We are not angels," she said quietly, almost to herself. "We are monsters. But sometimes monsters are all the universe has." As they traveled, she thought of the Litherans, of the fear that drove them to send a call across the galaxy. What would they think of Earth's saviors? Would they see mercy or chaos? Would they see courage or destruction? Mara did not know, and she did not care. Earth did not go to be praised. Earth went because it could not stand by while another species was destroyed. The crew worked tirelessly, preparing weapons, reinforcing shields, and running simulations. Each knew the risks, each knew the cost, but they also knew the reward, a chance to prove that humanity, for all its faults, was a force of hope. Not hope built from kindness alone, but from strength, sacrifice, and a willingness to do what others could not. Days passed as they traveled, stars streaming past like silver rivers. Mara walked among her crew, offering quiet encouragement and sometimes just standing in silence. There were stories told in low voices, of Earth's deadliest warriors, of creatures bred for survival, of battles fought in jungles, deserts, and frozen wastes. The humans carried their past with them, every scar, every loss, every victory. It shaped them. It made them monsters. And monsters could save worlds. When Lithera finally came into view, Mara's heart clenched. From orbit, the planet looked broken but not yet dead. Fires raged. Skies were dark with smoke and the oceans churned with unnatural currents. But life remained hidden and fragile like a candle struggling against the wind. Mara turned to her crew. "This is it," she said. "The Litherans called for saviors. We are what answered. Be ready. The world may be broken, but we will bring hope. In our own way." And in that moment, as the ships descended through the scarred skies of Lithera, the humans became something more than soldiers. They became monsters of legend, terrifying, unstoppable, and necessary. The galaxy would soon learn that Earth's monsters did not arrive quietly. They came roaring into fire, into chaos, into despair, and they would not stop until the impossible was achieved. The skies above Lithera burned as Earth's ships cut through the clouds. The humans did not arrive like messengers or diplomats, they arrived like storms. Engines screamed, hulls black and jagged, weapons bristling with light. The Litherans, hiding in shattered buildings and scorched forests, watched with wide eyes. They had called for saviors, but they had no idea what was coming. Then the monsters appeared. Giant humans in powered armor, their eyes glowing with fierce determination, soldiers enhanced with bioware and strange technologies, moving faster than any Litheran could follow. Some walked on 2 legs, others had forms that twisted with strength and speed, limbs armored with Earth's deadliest alloys. They did not speak much. They did not negotiate. They fought. And the Shard Legion learned almost instantly that they were facing something it could not calculate. Mara Lin led the vanguard. From her perch on the bridge of Titan's roar, she gave commands with calm precision. "Strike the left flank. Focus fire on the crystalline nexus. Core, breach their outer walls." The humans obeyed without hesitation. Core, a massive hybrid warrior, roared and charged, smashing through crystal soldiers like they were made of glass. Sparks flew, explosions shook the ground, and Litherans gasped. They had never seen power like this. And yet, in the chaos, destruction spread everywhere. Buildings collapsed under the weight of battle. Forests burned from stray blasts. Rivers boiled where energy weapons hit the water. Lithera's people felt a mix of fear and awe. These monsters were saviors, but saviors did not come quietly. A Litheran child hiding behind a shattered wall whispered to her mother, "Are they gods?" The mother shook her head. "No, child. They are something else. Something we cannot understand. They fight for us, but they are different." On the battlefield, humans moved with brutal efficiency. They did not hesitate to take risks, to leap into danger, to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Mara watched as one of her soldiers, a woman named Jara, dove into a mass of Shard Legion troops, pulling explosives from her belt and detonating them with a fearless grin. When she emerged covered in crystal shards, she laughed, bloodied but alive. "These are Earth's monsters," Mara murmured to herself. "And they will not stop." The Shard Legion tried to adapt, but the humans were faster. They learned weaknesses in seconds, used guerrilla tactics that no machine could anticipate. They struck from the skies, from the ground, from inside the enemy's ranks. Crystals shattered, energy cores exploded, and one by one the Legion's forces began to falter. Still, the cost was high. Human casualties were heavy, and Mara felt every loss like a knife through her chest. Soldiers she had trained, fought alongside, laughed with, gone in an instant. And yet she pressed forward, for the Litherans, for Earth, for the stubborn, terrifying belief that life was worth fighting for. Lieutenant Ral, a Litheran observer assigned to Earth's forces, followed closely behind the humans. He had seen many battles in his life, but nothing like this. "They are monsters," he said, voice trembling. "Not in the way we thought. But they care. They fight even when death is certain." Mara heard him, though she did not respond immediately. Instead, she watched as Kor lifted a collapsing building, throwing it into a swarm of crystal soldiers like it weighed nothing. Another human, a sniper named Vex, perched on a jagged cliff and took out Shard commanders with impossible precision. The battlefield was chaos, fire, and blood, but the humans turned it into a symphony of destruction. Night fell over Lithera, but the humans did not rest. Fires burned, illuminating the battlefield, and the Shard Legion continued its relentless attacks. Mara ordered squads to patrol, to shield civilians, and to strike with coordinated precision. Every movement was calculated, yet fearless. Earth's monsters had a rhythm that no other species could match. In one quiet moment, Mara looked over the ruined city below. She saw a small Litheran family, clinging together on a rooftop, watching the humans fight. Mara thought of Earth's history, the wars, the disasters, the hardships that had shaped her people. And she realized something profound. Humans were monsters not because they were cruel, but because they were willing to face unimaginable danger to protect others. "This is why we came," she said softly. "This is why Earth answers the call. Not because we are angels, not because we are perfect, but because we will fight when others cannot. We will endure when others fall. That is who we are." The Litherans began to whisper stories among themselves, stories of humans leaping into fire, ripping machines apart with their bare hands and striking fear into the unfeeling Shard Legion. Fear. The one thing the machines had never felt. Fear. And hope. For the first time in weeks, hope returned to Lithera's hearts. The humans were monsters, terrifying, unstoppable, and relentless, but they were also saviors. And as the first part of the battle ended, with the Shard Legion retreating temporarily, Mara knew this was only the beginning. The Litherans had called for help. They had prayed for heroes, and Earth had sent monsters, creatures of chaos, courage, and fire. The war for Lithera had begun, and the galaxy would soon remember that when humans came, they did not come quietly. They came roaring. The battle for Lithera raged on for days. Fires burned across the cities, smoke twisted into the darkened skies, and the Shard Legion pressed forward relentlessly. Yet something had changed. The humans had arrived, and with them, hope. Captain Mara Lynn moved through the battlefield with a quiet intensity. She watched her soldiers, monsters of Earth, tearing through the crystalline army with unmatched skill and determination. Every explosion, every strike was a calculated act of defiance. They were not perfect, but they were relentless, and in their ferocity, the tide of war began to shift. "Focus on their energy nodes," Mara commanded, pointing at the massive crystalline towers that pulsed with deadly light. "We bring down their core, we bring down their army." Her soldiers obeyed, charging forward with fearless precision. One of them, a hybrid named Core, leapt into the heart of a crystal stronghold. His massive fists tore through walls that would have crushed ordinary beings, and he laughed, a deep, primal sound that echoed over the battlefield. The Litherans who watched from a safe distance could only gape. "They are unstoppable," whispered Raoul, the Litheran scholar. His voice trembled with awe and fear. "They are not gods. They are monsters, and yet they fight for us." The Shard Legion adapted, sending waves of crystalline soldiers to counter the humans, but each wave met a different strategy. Humans used speed, strength, and cunning, striking where the machines were weakest. They split into squads, flanked enemies, and even when outnumbered, they never lost their focus. Each human fought not for glory but for survival, and for the lives of those they had never met. In one fierce skirmish, Mara herself led a squad into a Shard encampment. Explosions shook the ground, crystal shards flew in every direction, and the screams of machines being destroyed filled the air. One of her soldiers, Jara, was thrown against a wall, blood streaking her face, but she stood, wiped it away, and continued fighting. "Do not stop," Mara shouted. "Not until the Legion falls." Amid the chaos, the humans saved civilians whenever they could. They carried Litherans out of burning buildings, shielded them from blasts, and formed walls of flesh and steel to protect the weak. Every act of bravery was a lesson for the Litherans, a lesson in what it meant to fight with courage and selflessness, even when the world seemed to crumble. At the heart of the battlefield, a massive crystalline tower loomed, pulsing with energy that threatened to consume everything nearby. Mara knew this was the Shard Command Nexus. Destroy it and the rest of the army might falter, but it was heavily guarded, nearly impenetrable. "We go in together," Mara told her squad. "No hesitation, no fear. We either take it down or we die trying." The humans charged. Explosions rocked the tower as Core smashed through the front lines, Mara and her officers weaving through crystal soldiers with speed and precision. They reached the tower's core and, with synchronized effort, planted explosives at the base. As the timer ticked down, the Shard Legion launched a massive counterattack. Energy blasts tore through the ground, shards of crystal flying like deadly rain. Human soldiers fell, but each death delayed the enemy, buying precious seconds. Mara gritted her teeth, driving forward until finally, the explosives detonated. The tower collapsed in a blinding explosion, energy pulsing outward, and the Shard Legion's forces faltered. Machines froze, their adaptive intelligence thrown into chaos. For the first time, it seemed like victory was possible. The Litharans watched in disbelief. Their prayers had been answered, but not by angels. By monsters. Terrifying, unstoppable, brutal monsters who fought without pause, without fear, without hesitation. Humans. Yet even in this moment of triumph, the cost weighed heavily. Mara looked around and saw fallen soldiers, their armor shattered, their bodies battered. She felt every loss as a knife in her heart. Humanity had brought hope, but it had brought pain as well. Ral approached her, eyes filled with emotion. You saved us, he said. But at what cost? Mara's gaze softened as she looked across the battlefield. Smoke rose from the ruins, fires still burned, and the wounded were everywhere. The cost is heavy, she admitted. But hope is worth it. Sometimes, monsters must fight like monsters to save the innocent. In the days that followed, the humans pushed deeper into enemy territory. Each victory was hard-won, each step forward a testament to their skill and courage. Lithera began to breathe again slowly as the Shard Legion's forces weakened. Civilians came out from hiding, witnessing the humans in action, learning that survival required strength, sacrifice, and fearlessness. The turning tide of the war was not marked by banners or speeches. It was marked by fire, blood, and courage, the raw, relentless determination of Earth's monsters. And as Mara watched her crew fight, her heart swelled with pride and sorrow in equal measure. They are not gods, Ral said again, quietly, almost to himself. They are monsters, and they are our saviors, Mara nodded. Monsters with hearts, she replied.
That is who we are.
That is what Earth sent. And as the first signs of hope began to spread across Lithera, Mara knew the humans would not stop. They would fight until the last crystal fell, until the planet was free, until every life that could be saved was saved. Because Earth's monsters did not leave anyone behind. The battlefield of Lithar. It was a scarred and broken land. Smoke still curled from burning cities. Rivers carried ash, and the air was heavy with dust and the scent of metal. The Shard Legion was retreating, but only slowly, and the humans knew this was no time to rest. Victory would not come without sacrifice. Captain Mara Lin surveyed the ruins from a high ridge. She watched as her soldiers moved like shadows across the charred landscape, some helping civilians, some tearing into remaining crystal soldiers, and some preparing for the next assault. She could see the pain in their movements, the fatigue in their eyes. Every human had been pushed to the limit, yet none wavered. Remember, she told her squad, we fight not just for them, but for ourselves. This planet, these people, they need what only we can give. We are monsters, but monsters who care. Her squad nodded, their faces streaked with dirt, sweat, and blood. They were hybrids, BioWare soldiers, humans who had endured Earth's harshest environments. They were the monsters Earth sent, but they carried hearts, fierce and unyielding. In the ruins of a once great city, Mara spotted a group of Litharan children trapped under fallen buildings. Without hesitation, she ran forward, her armor taking the brunt of falling debris, and pulled them to safety. Behind her, Kor smashed a wall to create a path while Jara provided cover, fending off Shard soldiers with relentless fury. The children clung to her, wide-eyed and trembling, yet alive because of the monsters who had come for them. A Litharan elder approached Mara once the children were safe. "Why do you risk yourself so freely?" he asked, his voice shaking with gratitude and confusion. "Why do you fight when you could walk away?" Mara knelt, looking into the elder's eyes. "Because survival is not polite," she said softly. "Because sometimes monsters are the only heroes left." Meanwhile, the Shard Legion regrouped, launching a devastating counterattack in the northern valleys. Mara and her squad raced to intercept. Energy blasts tore through the ground, crystal shards flying like deadly hail. Human soldiers fell, some injured, some never to rise again. Each loss struck Mara deeply, but she pressed forward, refusing to let grief paralyze her. In the midst of the chaos, Kor made a final, desperate move. He leapt into a swarm of crystal soldiers, smashing through them with every ounce of strength he had left. Explosions lit the night as he drove them back, buying precious minutes for civilians to flee and for Mara's squad to regroup. When the dust settled, Kor was gone, lost to the battle he had helped turn. Mara's heart ached, but she knew his sacrifice had saved hundreds. As dawn broke, Lithera's skies were tinged with orange and gold. The humans had pushed the Shard Legion back once more, and the survivors began to rebuild amidst the ruins. Yet Mara could feel the weight of every life lost, the cost of every victory. Humanity's monsters were not immortal, they were scarred, haunted, and deeply mortal. In a quiet moment, Mara walked through a field littered with debris. She saw a Lithuanian child holding a broken toy, tears streaking her face. Mara knelt beside her. "Do you know why we fight?" she asked gently. The child shook her head. "Because life is worth it," Mara whispered. "Because hope is worth it. Because even monsters can protect what they love." The child smiled faintly, clutching Mara's hand. Mara felt a surge of emotion she could not explain, a mix of sorrow, pride, and fierce determination. This was why they had come. Not for glory, not for praise, but to fight when all hope seemed lost. Back at the command center, Ral, the Lithuanian scholar, watched Mara's squad strategize for the next assault. He marveled at their courage. "They do not hesitate," he said softly. "They do not fear death. They fight as though the world depends on them. And perhaps it does." Mara overheard him and nodded. "Every life saved is worth every scar, every loss. This is what it means to be human. This is what Earth sent. Monsters, yes, but monsters who will fight until the last breath for what is right." By the time the humans regrouped, they had cleared the northern valleys, secured the civilians, and inflicted heavy losses on the Shard Legion. The Lithuanians began to gather courage again, stepping out from hiding, inspired by the relentless determination of their saviors. As night fell, the battlefield was quiet, though not silent. The humans tended to the wounded, rebuilt barricades, and prepared for the inevitable counterattack. Mara stood on a ridge, staring at the stars above Lithera. She thought of Earth, of her crew, of the countless battles that had shaped them, and she knew one truth. Monsters could save worlds. The humans had come as saviors, but they were not gentle or graceful. They were terrifying, brutal, and relentless. They were monsters, and they were exactly what Lithera needed. Mara whispered into the night almost to herself. "We fight because it must be done. We fight because no one else will. And if we fall, then we fall knowing we gave everything for those who could not fight for themselves." And somewhere in the dark, hidden among the ruins, the Lithuanians whispered prayers, not for gods, but for the monsters who had chosen to become their heroes. The final push against the Shard Legion had begun. Lithera's landscape was a battlefield of fire, shattered buildings, and blackened earth. Yet hope, fragile and glowing, had returned. Humans and Lithuanians moved together. But it was the monsters from Earth who bore the heaviest burden. Captain Mara Lynn led the charge. Her armor was scorched, her hands raw from constant battle, yet her eyes burned with determination. "We finish this now," she told her squad. "For Lithera, for every life still standing. We do not stop." Her soldiers, humans, all nodded without hesitation. They were hybrids, genetically enhanced warriors, veterans of countless wars and creatures molded by the harshest environments of Earth. To others they were terrifying, unstoppable. To themselves they were necessary because only monsters could fight like this. The Shard Legion resisted fiercely. Waves of crystalline soldiers struck again and again, relentless and precise. Energy beams tore through the ground. Machines crashed into ruins and explosions lit the night. Mara's squad fought with unmatched skill, using every tactic they had learned in Earth's endless conflicts. Each soldier's movement was precise, almost deadly, yet motivated by more than training. It was driven by the desire to protect life, no matter the cost. In the heart of the battlefield, Kor and Jara led a squad to breach the Shard Command Nexus. The crystalline structure pulsed with lethal energy, surrounded by hundreds of defending machines. They knew the mission might be their last. Kor looked at Mara and said simply, "We do this together or not at all." They charged, smashing through the first line of crystal soldiers. Kor's massive fists shattered walls while Jara fired with deadly accuracy, every shot precise and lethal. Mara moved with swift determination, planting explosives and coordinating attacks. The Lithuanians watched in awe from a safe distance. These monsters were not saviors in the traditional sense. They were terrifying forces of nature, unstoppable yet fighting for life itself. Despite their skill, the cost was staggering. Explosions rocked the battlefield and one by one humans fell. Soldiers they had trained with, laughed with, and relied on vanished in fire and crystal shards. Mara felt each loss like a dagger to the heart, yet she pressed forward knowing hesitation meant failure for the entire planet. Finally, the explosives detonated. The Shard Command Nexus erupted in a blinding explosion, sending shards of crystal flying in every direction. Energy cascaded into the sky, and for the first time in weeks the Shard Legion faltered. Their forces scattered, disorganized and unsure of what to do. The Litherans could hardly believe their eyes. The humans had done it. They had broken the unbreakable. But as cheers rose, Mara's gaze fell on her fallen soldiers. Hundreds had given their lives to achieve this victory. Humans did not leave the battlefield unscathed. The monsters who had come to save a world had paid the ultimate price. A Litheran child ran to Mara, clutching a small, broken toy. "Why did you risk yourselves?" the child asked, tears in their eyes. Mara knelt, her voice gentle but firm. "Because life is worth it," she said. "Even if we fall knowing we tried. Monsters fight, yes, but monsters fight for hope. That is why we came." Ral, the Litheran scholar, approached, his face pale but awed. "Your people. You did what no one else could. But at such cost. How do you bear it?" Mara's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "We bear it because we must. Because the galaxy does not wait. Because monsters, in the end, are what the universe needs when there is no one else left. This is who we are. Earth sends monsters, but they are also protectors, survivors, heroes." The Shard Legion had been defeated. Its remnants fled across the galaxy, leaving Lithera wounded but alive. The humans had saved the planet, but they did not stay to celebrate. Their ships were battered, their crews exhausted, and many were lost forever. They did not linger for applause. Their work was done, and their purpose was to continue, to fight wherever life was threatened. Mara stood on the edge of a ruined city, looking at the smoke rising from the battlefields. She thought of the humans who had given everything, of the ones who would never see home again, and yet, she also thought of the lives saved, the hope rekindled, and the Litherans who could now rebuild their world. The Litherans would tell stories of this day for generations. They would speak of terrifying, unstoppable monsters who came from a distant blue and green world. They would speak of humans who fought with courage, cunning, and heart. And they would remember the sacrifices, the lives given freely to protect those they had never known. Mara whispered into the quiet night, almost to herself. "We are monsters, yes, but monsters with hearts. Monsters who fight because no one else can. Monsters who bring hope when hope seems lost." And as the first stars began to shine over Lithera's healing landscape, the humans prepared to leave. They had come at the Litherans' call. They had fought like monsters, and they had saved a world. The galaxy would remember. The universe would know Earth had sent monsters, and those monsters had won. Years had passed since the humans came to Lithera. The scars of war were still visible, the blackened ruins of cities, the deep craters where battles had raged, but life was returning. Trees grew again, rivers shimmered with clear water, and the Litherans rebuilt their homes with hope in their hearts. Yet none of them would ever forget the monsters who had come to save them. Captain Mara Lynn, older now, stood on the observation deck of her ship orbiting Lithera. The planet below looked different than she remembered. Wounded, yes, but alive. She thought of the humans who had fought and died on its surface, of their courage, their sacrifices, and the heart that had driven them to risk everything for strangers across the stars. "They called for saviors," Mara whispered, voice soft against the hum of the ship. "But Earth sent monsters." Her crew, a mix of battle-hardened soldiers and hybrid warriors, stood silently beside her. Some had lost friends. Some carried scars that would never fade. Yet all of them shared a quiet pride. They had faced impossible odds and prevailed, not for glory, not for fame, but because it was the right thing to do. That was humanity. That was Earth. That was what monsters could be. On Lithera, statues were being erected, monuments to the humans who had saved a world. They were terrifying forms, larger than life, armor and weapons included, faces fierce and resolute. Children ran around them, imagining the monsters leaping into fire, ripping through crystal soldiers and saving lives. Elders told stories of courage, sacrifice, and hope. "Do you think they will return?" A young Litheran asked an elder as they watched the stars above. "They may," the elder replied, voice full of awe. "But even if they do not, we know what they represent. Monsters who fight for life, monsters who never give up. That is their gift to us." Back on the Titan's roar, Mara watched the planet slowly heal. She thought of Kor, Yara, and the countless humans who had given their lives. They had not survived the battles, but their spirit endured. Humanity's monsters were gone, yet their legacy remained in every life saved. every building rebuilt, every child who would grow up knowing the price of hope. Mara closed her eyes, remembering the battlefield, the fires, the explosions, the screams, and the courage that had shone brighter than any light in the galaxy. "We are monsters," she said quietly, "but monsters who fight because no one else can. Monsters who protect when protection seems impossible. Monsters who bring hope where hope is lost." The Litherans had learned more than just survival. They had learned courage, determination, and the fierce, unyielding heart of humanity. They spoke of the monsters with reverence, understanding that heroism did not always come wrapped in beauty or grace. Sometimes it came roaring through fire and chaos, leaving destruction in its path but also leaving life. Mara's thoughts turned to Earth. Her people waited there, unaware of the legends forming light years away. She felt a surge of pride. Humanity did not fight for recognition, did not fight for fame. They fought because it was necessary. They were monsters, yes, but in their monsters' hearts was something rare in the galaxy: unbreakable courage, compassion in the face of horror, and a refusal to surrender. On Lithera, children climbed the statues pretending to be the monsters of legend. Adults whispered stories around fires, and even the wounded forest seemed to lean toward the sky, as if honoring the memory of those who had fought. Mara knew that these stories would last for generations. The humans' actions would be remembered long after the smoke faded, long after the scars healed, long after the last survivor of the Shard Legion disappeared into legend. Yet Mara also understood that Earth's monsters would continue to roam the galaxy. Wherever life was threatened, wherever impossible odds loomed, humanity's warriors would answer the call. They would arrive terrifying and unstoppable, leaving a mark on every world they touched. Some would call them saviors. Some would call them monsters. But Mara knew the truth. They were both. Monsters with hearts, heroes forged in fire, guardians who did not hesitate to risk everything. As she looked down at Lithera one last time, Mara felt a quiet satisfaction. The planet was alive again, its people stronger, its hope restored. And somewhere in the ruins, the Litherans would continue to tell stories of the humans who came roaring into their world. Monsters who saved them from destruction. Mara turned to her crew, her voice steady and proud. "We did not fight for glory. We did not fight to be remembered. We fought because we had to. That is what Earth sent. That is what monsters can be." The humans boarded their ships, engines humming, ready to leave Lithra behind. But their legacy remained, etched in hearts, etched in history, and etched in the very spirit of a world they had saved. As they departed into the stars, Mara allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. When humans arrive, they do not come quietly. They do not come for recognition. They come roaring through fire and chaos, terrifying, relentless, unstoppable. They come to protect. They are Earth's monsters, and their story, like Lithera, will endure.